the night her best friend forgot her ring at my place. I always thought the soundproofing in our building was good. Thick doors, respectful neighbors, a constant low hum of city air that made private things feel safely private. That illusion cracked the day I started hearing the tiny sounds that didn't belong to me. A soft laugh outside our door that wasn't my wife's, the vibration of a message on a phone that wasn't mine, a key hesitating in the lock as if guilt had weight. My name is Nate. I'm 34, graphic designer, coffee snob, the sort of husband who buys rosemary bread we don't need because it makes the kitchen smell like a memory. My wife, Marina, works PR at a gallery where the wine is free and everyone pretends art doesn't require rent. We've been married 6 years. The last two turned into polite choreography. Two dancers repeating a routine we didn't remember learning, smiling at the right beats, touching without feeling the music. It started with a dinner party. Not ours, her boss's, a polished night in an apartment with swinging views and a rug nobody should wear shoes on. I was supposed to be there, but a client emergency kept me at the studio. The emergency ended at 9, the kind of fake crisis you fix by changing a font and praying to the god of deliverables. I took the late train home, bought that rosemary bread, and unlocked the apartment to find it empty and crisp, the kind of tidy you get only when nothing living has been there for a while. On the counter sat Marina's phone, turned face down like a sleeping cat. She never forgets it. A notification lit the screen, car downstairs. You looked perfect. The sender was saved as a single letter, M minimalist. Cute, if it didn't feel like a whisper you weren't meant to hear. I stared until the screen went black, and then I stared at the black. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. I could hear my own heart inventing stories. A coworker, a safe ride, a driver trying to flirt. Every version had a flavor, and none of them tasted like rosemary. Marina came home 20 minutes later, radiant and slightly windblown. She smelled like jasmine and wine, and her laugh was on a delay, like she'd hidden part of it in the elevator. "Hey," she said, kissing me on the cheek, lips cool from night air. "You should have seen the installations. Almost made me forgive humanity." "You left your phone," I said, like a good man who was definitely not unraveling. "Did I?" She glanced at it, then at me, and for a second I saw the mirror of my face reflected in her pupils. "Oh, right. I borrowed Abby's to call a car. Mine died halfway through some speech." Abby is her best friend. Has been since college. The kind of friend who remembers your first heartbreak and your second glass of champagne. I nodded and sliced the bread. We ate standing up, dipping torn pieces in oil like strangers at a casual bar. When she showered, I pressed my ear to the bathroom door like a teenager, listening to the hiss and imagining voices inside the water. Nothing but pipes and the resilient drum of my own fear. The next day, a Friday, I ran into Abby in the lobby. She was late, heels in hand, hair in a villainous bun. Abby, the emergency contact in our marriage, funny, fierce, possibly allergic to boundaries. "You missed a ridiculous party," she said, slipping into her shoes. Duty called. I pressed the elevator button. "Did Marina get home okay?" "Sure, why?" She tilted her head, studying me the way only someone who's seen you in wrinkled honeymoon pajamas can study you. "Everything all right, Nate?" "Just asking." She shrugged and smiled the way people do when they know more than they're saying, but it's not their confession to make. The elevator opened. She stepped in, and I stayed because I suddenly remembered my mailbox. Or because I was afraid of being trapped in a small, moving box with a truth I couldn't swallow. That evening, Marina suggested we try something modern, which is usually code for rearranging the furniture. Instead, Over pad, tie, and a patient candle, she asked, "What do you think about loosening the definition of marriage?" My fork paused like a bird poised to land and choosing not to. Loosening how? Not a full open marriage, she said, already softening it, already marketing it. Just acknowledging that sometimes connections happen. Flirting, a drink that becomes two. We're adults. We trust each other. I had never resorted to a laugh as a shield before, but one arrived uninvited. Is this hypothetical? Everything starts hypothetical. She looked at me over her glass, eyes unreadable in the candlelight. Don't you ever get curious? I thought of the lobby, the party, the letter M on her phone. I thought of my own loneliness, a polite ache I'd been wearing like a coat to the office and back. Curious isn't the same as careless, I said. It sounded good, well-behaved, laminated. It also sounded like a door locking. She nodded, the conversation folding down like a tent at the end of a festival. We washed dishes together, shoulders touching and not. She hummed under her breath, a tune I didn't recognize, and I wanted to ask what station it was playing on. Instead, I asked if she wanted tea. She said no. She said she was tired. She said goodnight like a promise with the ink smudged. A week later, the gallery hosted a late exhibit. "Don't wait up," she texted. I tried not to. I took a book to the rooftop and let the city climb through me. The air was the kind that insists on being tasted, metallic and time-scented from some chef 3 floors down. I was 2 chapters into not reading when someone's head appeared over the stairwell. Abby. Bare shoulders in a navy dress. A laugh that started low as if it had fallen and she'd caught it delicately. "You live up here now," she said. "Rooftop residency," I said. "I'm learning to photosynthesize." We sat on the cement ledge with paper cups of the cheap Prosecco I keep for design victories and breakups. This was neither but close enough. Abby talked about a client who wanted a logo that looked like trust and also like a wolf. I told her about a file that crashed and the email I wrote to it out of spite. The night made us conspirators. When silence came, it was gentle. She looked toward the glittering skyline and said, almost to the lit windows, "She shouldn't have brought it up like that. The loosening thing." I turned to her, pulse doing the kind of arithmetic you can't show your teacher. "She told you." "She tells me everything." Abby's mouth twitched. "You know that." "Do I?" She met my eyes then, and I felt the elevator doors in me closing and opening at once. "She's complicated," Abby said. "So are you." "I'm simple," I said. "I make things look clean that are." Abby breathed out a laugh. It landed between us and waited. "For what it's worth," she said, voice low now. I told her not to say it, not like a business proposal. Hard stuff shouldn't come with bullet points. "We hate bullet points," I agreed. We were close enough now that the edge of her perfume, the not Marina jasmine, found me. Abby tucked a curl behind her ear, an unconscious move I'd seen her do 1,000 times across brunch tables and holiday drinks. I had never noticed how intimate it was until there was no one else around to make it public. "Don't get hurt, Nate," she said. "It's easy with her." It sounded like a warning and like forgiveness for something I hadn't done yet. I looked at her mouth the way a diver looks at a lake, assessing depth, clarity, temperature you can only know by entering. My hand found the rim of my cup and held tight. "You too," I said, and it came out like a vow. We didn't kiss on the roof. We kissed in my kitchen. It happened days later after another late night that wasn't mine. Abby texted at 11, "You awake?" It was the sort of text you don't answer unless you've already answered it to yourself a dozen times. I typed yes. She said she was passing the building. I said there's bread and olive oil and the lie of safety. She knocked in 3 soft chords and stepped in. I didn't plan it, and I also did. We ate standing again, like nothing serious ever wants a chair. Abby told me she argued with a client about honesty, and I told her I argued with myself about it all week. She laughed, God, that laugh, and then she didn't anymore, and the quiet filled with things we had both denied. Her hand found mine where it rested on the counter. Fingers, warm, curious, a question without a question mark. "This is a bad idea," I said, and my voice betrayed me by sounding relieved. "Probably," she said, "the best ones are." She stepped forward and our hips found an old geometry. Her lips brushed mine, weightless then not. The kiss was deliberate without being graphic, the way you let a candle kiss your skin long enough to remember heat and not long enough to scar. Her breath tasted like apples and something darker. My mind tried to name it and gave up, which is how I knew the nomming didn't matter. We leaned back against the counter like we'd been running and had finally found a place to stop. Her fingers curled at the back of my neck, the pad of her thumb finding the point where I carry every deadline. She pressed it, and the world did that soft tilt, gravity briefly negotiable, control cracking into desire's easier math. "When do we stop?" I asked into the space between our mouths. She smiled without letting go. "When it's not a secret," she said. "Secrets ruin people, but sometimes they also save them for a minute." We saved ourselves for several minutes. We didn't undress. We didn't invade. We hovered, lips and palms, and that aching temptation not to be lonely in our own lives. When she finally stepped back, her lipstick had left a half-moon on my lower lip like a signature. She wiped it with her thumb, slow, then held my face with both hands and looked like she was memorizing me for a test she hoped never to take. "I shouldn't have come," she said. "I'm glad you did." I sounded like a person I judged in other stories. Abby left with her shoes in her hand because even guilt knows how to be quiet. I locked the door and rested my forehead against it, as if the wood could bless me with absolution. That's when I saw it on the floor by the baseboard, a ring. Thin gold, simple, a faint notch where a habit sat. Not mine, not Marina's, Abby's. I picked it up and it hummed in my palm like a kept secret. In the morning, I slipped the ring into a small dish on my nightstand, the one that usually held my watch and the solitary courage of single tasks. I planned to text Abby. I planned to invent a maturity I didn't feel. Instead, Marina came home early, so early I believed in omens. She walked straight into the bedroom and saw the ring the way storms see picnic blankets. "What's that?" she asked. "Abby's," I said, and the honesty came out before I could iron it. Marina blinked once, slow, then her mouth did something like a smile and failed halfway. "Why is it here?" "She came by last night," I said. I tried to make the words gentle, respectful, adult. I failed. "We talked." "About what?" she asked, each word separate and polished. "About you, not a lie, not the truth. About choices." She looked at me for a long time, long enough that I thought she might throw something, cry, laugh, leave. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. The silence pressed into my ears until they rang. "I didn't sleep at the gallery," she said finally, "if that's what you're wondering. I didn't breathe. I did have a drink with someone," she continued, and there, she let the word someone sit between us like a coin neither of us would pick up. "It wasn't what you think. It wasn't what I thought either. Do you want me to say more?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't know what helps." She nodded once, like a doctor confirming a diagnosis, and then her eyes found the dish again. "Abby forgot her ring," she said. "She never forgets jewelry." "She did," I said, and I felt my pulse throb in my throat. "I'll return it." Marina stood, walked to the window. The city obligingly glittered, unaware of us. I asked for loosening because I thought rules would protect us from the truth, she said, voice low and even. Maybe I wanted permission to be careless without being the villain. Maybe I wanted to provoke you into noticing me. I notice you, I said too quick. Now you do. She turned and her mouth was a straight, brave line. Do you love me, Nate? Yes, no hesitation there. Pain and love aren't enemies, they throw the same punches. Do you love Abby? I love that she listens, I said. I love that she knows what we've lost. I did not say I loved the roof or the kitchen or the way a kiss can make time obedient for a minute. I didn't have the right to dress a moment in a word that big. Marina crossed the room and picked up the ring. She turned it over in her fingers, the same way she turns press releases into events. You'll give this back. I will. And you'll tell her we're going to try, she said. She exhaled and the air smelled like the first rain after a heat wave. If you want to try. Yes, I said and felt an odd nausea of relief. I do. She nodded and without warning put the ring in her pocket. I'll return it, she said. It's mine to return. Why yours? Because I asked for a door and left it open, she said. Because she's my friend. Because I need to know if the friendship is still a friendship or just a clever disguise. Marina's eyes were bright but not wet. She's always been good at saving tears for bathrooms and taxis. And because I think she loves you a little. She loves us, I said, or thinks she can. Marina studied me like I was an art piece that needed a new title. There are two kinds of secrets, she said. The kind that rot and the kind that ferment into something drinkable if you're patient. I don't know which kind we have. Then we wait, I said. We do the unglamorous work. She smiled, small, real, the original version I married. No bullet points. No bullet points. The unglamorous work started in tiny ways, cooking together without turning it into a performance, sitting in the same room without scrolling away from each other, going to bed at the same time like not just roommates with synchronized alarms. We spoke to a therapist who wore linen and asked questions that lived in my head for days. We tried to revive rituals. The Saturday market, the Sunday walk, the quiet Tuesday where nothing required fireworks. A week later, Abby texted, "Can we talk?" Marina and I had agreed, radically, painfully, to handle it together. We invited her over for coffee. The three of us stood in my kitchen, the same spot where I'd imagined a stranger's forgiveness, and let the machines hum and the kettle sigh. Abby looked smaller without her bounce. Guilt will do that. I'm sorry, she said to both of us, for inserting myself into your pause. You didn't insert yourself, Marina said, and her voice was gentler than I'd expected. We opened the door by not closing it. Abby half laughed, half breathed. I brought something. She reached into her bag and set her ring on the counter. I didn't realize I'd lost it until the morning after. I kept thinking, what does it say that I didn't feel it missing? It says you were being human, I said, and I meant it. It says we all were. We stood there, three people who loved each other in different, overlapping geometries, and tried to rewrite a scene YouTube usually ends with door slams and dramatic music. We chose quieter instruments. We chose process over plot twists. Abby slid the ring back onto her finger. I think I need a little distance, she said, and her eyes found Marina. Not forever, just until the secret stops tasting better than the truth. Marina reached for her. Their hug wasn't cinematic, it was tight and real. When Abby left, she paused at the door and looked at me, not with apology but with gratitude that felt like release. Take care of each other, she said. I'll be around when the air clears. We didn't kiss goodbye. We didn't need to. The apartment felt different after she left, like someone had opened a window and the room was finally the right temperature. Marina leaned into me, forehead to my collarbone, the old fit we'd both stopped trusting. I wrapped my arms around her and felt her inhale, long and shaky. "We're not okay," she said, "but we're not pretending the wound isn't there." "That helps," I said. "Say it again." "That helps." She looked up at me, and there it was, the shy smile she used to pull out at the end of great dates and bad movies. "Kiss me like we haven't been careful," she said. So I did. Not a rushed kiss, not a bargaining chip, not a cover-up. A kiss that remembered how we started. A kiss that promised nothing except the next honest breath. Her hand found the back of my neck, the same point Abby had found and pressed. The world tilted again, but this time it felt like the tilt ships used to catch wind, not the kind that runs you into rocks. We didn't solve everything in a week. We didn't become saints. I still think about the rooftop sometimes, the way the city made our secrets feel smaller than they were. But there was the day Marina reached for my hand on the subway without looking and kept it. There was the night we danced in the kitchen to a song on her phone without checking who texted during the bridge. There was the morning we woke at the same time and said good morning like it mattered. And sometimes, when I pass the dish on my nightstand, I remember the ring that once sat there, and the way it could have ruined us or remade us. I'm learning that vows aren't a cage. They're a door you keep locking and unlocking together, not to let others in, but to let each other out when the air is stale, then back in when the rosemary is warm and the house smells like home.